In 6B.8, we're going to go over finding missing sides using trigonometry. Our first example just wants us to find the ratio. We do not have to solve in this first section. I'm going to be using SO, Ka, Toa. I label my O, H, and between the angles is the A. It's asking for tangent of theta. That would be O over the A. I label my opposite, hypotenuse, adjacent. This wants tan, so it wants O over A. Opposite from the theta, hypotenuse, adjacent. Cosine is A over H. From the angle given, this corner is where I start. It tells me my starting point. This is opposite, hypotenuse, adjacent. Sine is O over H. And our ratios are set up. So if it wants a ratio, I don't have to solve, I just put the fraction. Example 2 is where we solve. I'm going to label, this is the angle given. This is where I start. I label the opposite, the hypotenuse, and the adjacent. O does not have a side. H has a 4, A has an X. A over H. So I'm going to write cosine. Usually I put a theta here. It's not a theta this time, it's a 32 for the angle. Equals A over H. Now if I want to solve for X, actually, I'm just going to go through and do the setup on all of them really quick. So I'm going to label from my angle O, H, A. O is missing. I'm going to have cosine of my angle equals A over H. From my angle, I label O, H, A. O is missing. Cosine of angle 61 equals A is an X, H is a 3.9. Wow, they're all cosines so far. Here's my angle I start with. I label O, H, A. O is missing. A over H. Cosine of my angle equals A over H. Here's my angle. I have O, H, A. H is scribbled out. We have TOA this time. Tangent of my angle equals O over the A. Angle, label O, H, A. A is missing. O and H use sine of my angle to equal O over H. Okay, these are all set up. Now I have to solve them. When there is a number on the denominator, I'm going to times by 4, times by 4. That will eliminate, and that is what x will equal. So I'm going to enter in 4 times the cosine of 32. Your sine, cosine, tangent buttons are right here. To find a side, I just type cosine 32, enter. And it's 3.336, nearest tenth. So I'm going to say that it's 3.3. Actually, okay. I just set my calculator to degrees. We are going to use degrees. So when I use degrees, I just fixed my mode. Most of you already have it set in degrees. that'd actually be a 4. So fix that. There we go. All right, question 6. Nope, there's an x on the bottom. I'm gonna wait for that. 5 on the bottom, times by 5, times by 5. X equals 5 times cosine of 39. 3.88, and round to 3.9. This has a 3.99 on the denominator. I'm going to multiply by it. .9 times cosine of 61 equals 1.89. Gonna round that to 1.9. Are there any others with a number on the bottom? 10 times by 14. X is equal to 14 times sine of 25. 5.91, so 5.9. Now when x is in the denominator, this one gets a little weird. You are going to multiply by x, which cancels that out, and then you're going to divide by cosine of 41. I like to make that line bigger and put cosine of 41 underneath it, and that cancels out. X equals, so instead of dividing by the number, timesing by the number over here, we're going to type in 4 divided by cosine of 41. 5.3. So whenever x is on the bottom, it's 2 steps. You get the x out of the way, so it's not in the denominator, and then you get x alone. So x is equal to 2.4 divided by tangent of 49. Oops, sorry, you can't see it. 2.4 divided by tangent of 49. 0.8, we'll bump that 0 up to a 1. 2.1. So just be careful when the number's on the bottom. we multiply when the number's on top and x is on the bottom. It ends up being divided. And we are going to repeat. This time I'm going to set up and then I will solve it. So here's my angle. I label O, H, A. A does not have a side. I'm using so. Sine of my angle equals O over H. Okay, now because x is on the bottom, I'm going to times by x, and then divide by sine of 48. That leaves x alone, and I can enter in 6 divided by sine 48, 8.1. Question 16. Here's my angle, O, H, A. A is missing this side. That means I'm using so. Sine of my angle equals O over H. X is on the bottom. I have to do the times by x, divide by sine of 42.8. That goes away. X equals 10 divided by sine of 42.8. 14.7 will stay a 7 because the one after it will not round it up. Here's my angle. I have O, H, A. O does not have a side, so I'm using cosine of my angle equals A over H. It's over x again. Okay, times by x. Get x alone. X is equal to 13 divided by cosine of 44. 18.1 when I round it. That 7 will bump the 0 up to a 1 when I round. Here's my angle. It's in this corner. When I walk across to the opposite side, hypotenuse adjacent. H does not have a letter. I'm using TOA. Tangent of my angle equals O over A. Man, these are all the mean ones. Times by x. Get x alone. X is equal to 9.8 divided by tangent of 28. Oh, that is a 25. My bad. 25. 21.1 will not round it up, so I'm going to leave it at 0. Here's my angle. I have O, H, A. TOA is tangent of my angle equals O over A. Finally, times by 3. X is equal to 3 times tangent of 25. 1 point, that 9 is going to round the 3 up to a 4. 1.4. For the missing side length. Angle, I label O, H, A. O is missing. That's cosine of my angle equals A over H. Get rid of the X, and then get X alone. Twelve divided by cosine of 62 is 25.6. We'll bump that 5 up to a 6. So this is how you solve for missing sides using trigonometry.